finishes and factions catching action.
Well, Adam, I'm back.
Yes, you are. And
So is this week's
welcome every-
episode of Finishers and Factions.
Finishes and Factions does Monday Night Raw. So glad to have you back. I think everybody's sick of listening to the sound of my voice, to be quite honest.
I'll tell you something, you wouldn't have heard mine last week if I'd have been here. It would have just been a selection of coughs, splutters, and everything from in between. But nope, we are back with Monday Night Raw from Nashville, Tennessee, in the Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, 13,000 strong in the Bridgestone Arena this week. Formerly a home of SummerSlam 2022 and the 24th Raw to be broadcast from Nashville in general.
And Nashville's definitely catching up with the home of professional wrestling. They seem to be getting an awful lot brought down there. And the guys from Nashville really do seem to enjoy themselves when it comes to wrestling events as well. I mean, if you just look at the entry of this week, I don't think there was a single person out of that 13,000 strong in attendance that was not yeeting when Jey Uso came out.
No, and while we mention it, I mean, this was the second Raw in a row that Jey has opened Raw, and just the same sort of Jey-tastic pop that we've almost gotten used to at this point.
Right? I'm sat here going, how long can this pop keep going? And then every week you go to a different stadium in a different section of America, and there's just more yeets than you will ever see. I'll tell you something though, Michael Cole seems to be getting fitter. He's catching up. He's keeping up with these yeets and not having to sit down.
Oh no, he's been yeeting from the sitting position. He's he's starting to complain a little bit more about it. But he's certainly being able to keep up a little bit more. But
well, if he wants to complain too much, Triple H, I will quite happily take his spot on commentary. I can yeet all day long.
As has been proven in your live streams before now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Nashville 100% was Yeetville this week, or it was until Gunther decided to catch Jey out mid-yeet.
And he was mid-yeet too, up on that announce table, arms up, and you could see he was just about to drop that yeet, and then, Gunther dropped him like a bad habit, right onto the outside of the floor.
Yeet.
Yeet.
He's basically looks like he's following through on a promise that he'd made Jey the week before, of making Jey's road to WrestleMania an absolute living hell. I mean, I think Gunther had probably preempted the fact that Jey was going to be picking Gunther as his champion of choice.
I think we all saw that one coming.
Right. I mean, yeah, but they didn't like to tease us a little bit with what was going on Friday Night SmackDown while you were away. It was very much sort of teasing the idea of Ray versus Cody and maybe a few more libations being had on tour buses before press conferences and all the rest of it. I mean, yeah,
You're
didn't
telling
watch
me
it
that
last week,
the main event Jey Uso likes a libation? No.
As does the American Nightmare. The American Nightmare enjoys a libation as well.
Yeet.
Yeet. Oh. But yeah, I mean,
I've just dropped my title. Fuck's sake.
But yeah, Gunther does not take any prisoners in this attack. I mean, Jey, bless him, he tries to fight back, but Gunther has well and truly got Jey's number. I mean, has Jey ended up picking a surefire loss for himself at Mania, or is he gonna feed off the energy of Mania?
Got a feeling there's gonna be it's not gonna be a straight fight. Let's put it that way. I do not think this is gonna be a straight one-on-one, match. I've got a feeling that eventually, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a few little stipulations thrown in there somewhere. Now, I would like to take a guess at what sort of stipulations, but there's so many options to think of. Uh, it'd be stupid trying to guess. Um, as long as they don't put it in a side of a steel cage, I think we'll be fine.
I don't think it's been. I think it's been a very, very long time since they've done a steel cage match at WrestleMania. So it's a possibility. We can't sort of rule it out, I suppose.
No, but I think it's neither of these two superstars are the sort of superstars you'd expect to see in a steel cage. So to throw someone like Gunther and Jay in there, it just it wouldn't it wouldn't fit.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's so many different stipulations that could be thrown in on this match as we go, and it's
And the
just
last time a steel cage was used at WrestleMania was 2007 in WrestleMania 23. So that just kind of shows how long ago it was.
it's not very often we have like these gimmicky type matches at WrestleMania. There's normally enough of a story built up where they don't need the gimmick.
Hmm. Yeah, so we're
But
definitely going to end up with. I don't think it'll be anything too nuts. I think maybe we might see a chair or a table or something along those lines, but maybe a ladder. But it won't be anything too over the top, I don't think.
see, I'm leaning towards a ladder match. I've got to admit, it seems like the progression at the moment is that they may well have a ladder match at Mania, but maybe not. I don't know. Again, too many possibilities are firing through my mind at this moment in time.
I
So
mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to see another ladder match at WrestleMania, especially for a title. But it's it's not really. They've just done it with Cody and Kevin Owens, haven't they? I don't think they're going to reuse it for Jay and Gunther if they get that far. Well,
no,
obviously they will
probably
get
not.
that far, but it's been set now. Obviously, at the end
I
of
say
this
we've now officially got
encounter,
our first match on the card for the for WrestleMania weekend. It's a done deal.
it is. I mean, I must admit, I did find it slightly amusing when Jay picked up the mic. He's like, "Yo, Gunther, I shouldn't say this, but," and you've got like the entire arena just there, like, "Go on, say it. Don't tell us you shouldn't say it. Say it." Me and you at WrestleMania. And Gunther, he was not happy. I mean, he'd already started walking away at this point, so for him to run back and for Jay to try and get a little bit extra on there, especially after the fact he ate two pretty big power bombs in the first encounter. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the first encounter came with one of Gunther's trademark vicious chops as well. I mean, those things sound horrific and they look like they fucking hurt.
I mean,
So
I'm not going to be the first person in line. If he turns around and says, "I need a volunteer," I'm going to make sure I'm stepping backwards. Like,
yeah,
I am not taking a
100%.
Gunther slap chop.
No,
Well, makes no
definitely
difference,
not.
to be fair. It's definitely not something that I'd like to take too much of. But yeah, so, like you said, at the point of Monday Night Raw going live, we are currently recording this on a Thursday. Um, we had 68 days until Jay versus Gunther at WrestleMania. So obviously, take a couple of days away from that. We're on about 65 days now until WrestleMania, which is oh, it's really not that far away, is it?
We're only just starting down that road to WrestleMania. We've only got a few more weeks until Elimination Chamber. Um,
Yeah.
and we've only got a few more seconds before we move on to the next part of Raw. So let's make that move now. And we went to a VT, which was a bit of a Raw recap concerning what happened last week between Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Io Sky, and Rhea Ripley.
No, I had to watch this recap myself a little bit closer than normal. Obviously, I wasn't here last week to be able to kind of jump in and really wasn't feeling well enough to want to watch it. So for this was actually ideal for me. Getting to see the highlight from last week where Rhea accidentally slapped Liv. Well, I'm not 100% sure that was an accident, but either way, it cost Io Sky a win, and she was not happy about that because that sent Liv Morgan into the elimination chamber.
Yeah, so that was during the first one of the first women's qualifying matches for the Elimination Chamber last week.
Yes.
So Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez had attacked Io Sky and Rhea Ripley backstage earlier in the night, and Rhea came down for revenge against Raquel Rodriguez. Liv Morgan got involved. The slap from Rhea to Liv wasn't an accident, but I think costing Io Sky the match was not the intended outcome. And yeah, I mean, we saw a very different side to Rhea Ripley. I mean, Rhea Ripley was very apologetic last week to Io Sky, and yeah, we didn't really see any of that this week.
No, not that I saw anyway. Rhea being apologetic is not something we are used to seeing either, because Mami does whatever the fuck Mami wants to do, you know, and she really don't care too much about who she pisses off or who she upsets. Which,
No,
I mean, can you blame her? She's got a strap over her shoulder. She is the queen bitch at the moment, and she's going to make sure she lets everyone know that's the case.
yeah, and I think realistically it was nice of Rhea to try and apologise last week. Obviously, Io was in no position to sort of hear it. She didn't want to hear it, and I think that sort of maybe rubbed Rhea up the wrong way. But yeah, Ripley, we go from that video recap to a backstage promo linked to the video recap where Rhea Ripley is talking about the events of last week. Says about the fact that if Liv Morgan makes it into makes it through the elimination chamber, that she'll deal with Liv the same way that she always has. But yeah, I mean, she even has a quick jab at Charlotte Flair this week, who thankfully does not make an appearance.
I mean, I wish she hadn't made an appearance at the Royal Rumble, but I'm probably not the only one, to be fair. After looking at social media a lot after that Royal Rumble women's event, there was a lot of WWE fans that were not happy about the fact that Charlotte had just managed to walk in and sneak it off. Well, she didn't even sneak it, did she? She just basically went, "I'm not returning unless I've got it," by the looks of it.
Yeah, and this is it. It's I talked a lot last week about how Charlotte Flair's a Q jumper and all the rest of it. I've tried to sort of restrain myself a little bit from ranting too heavily over it, because
Good job.
otherwise the entire podcast is me ranting about how Charlotte Flair is a dirty Q jumper, and it isn't as over as she thinks she is. But hey, I'm not going to go down that road.
I mean, there's several wrestlers we could do that too. Charlotte Flair and Miz are definitely two of them. So yeah, we've probably wasted enough time bitching about both of them in the past. And then I think it's probably best that we split our time evenly and we jump into our first match of the evening.
So there's a few other bits I want to touch on just before we go to there. So we've finishing up the backstage interview with Rhea Ripley. Ripley finishes her interview. Is confronted by Io Sky and a returning Dakota Kai, who's been out on injury for the last, I think, 6 or 7 weeks with a concussion.
Been out for a little while, hasn't she?
And we also we come to the end of that promo, seeing Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez making their entrance into the arena. However, in true WWE style, especially during the Netflix era, there was something in between that and the match, which was just a VT promo concerning the WWE Tag Team title match between the War Raiders and American Made, which happens to be the believe it's the main event of the card for it. But yeah, I mean, going into the first match, it's a women's tag team match between Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, and Damage Control, Io Sky and Dakota Kai.
And it was nice to see Dakota Kai back in the ring. Obviously, like we said, she's been out for a little while with a concussion-based injury. And I also think at some point as well, they've given her a little bit of extra time to try and heal with that concussion, because we've seen it in the past so many times with different other superstars where they've got concussed, they've come back too quickly, they've ended up taking another concussion and having to sit out for 3 times as long. My favourite one for that one, and not in a harsh way at all, was Enzo Amore. Like, that guy collected concussions like I know you do Pokemon cards. So it's definitely, you've got to be careful with that sort of injury, especially if you look outside of WWE into other sports where people take a lot of concussions. CTE is definitely a very powerful thing, and not something I'd want to be getting myself. So yeah, it's nice to see the fact that WWE are looking after their talent and making sure they don't come back too early.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, anything concerning concussion, anything concerning head injuries in general, you've got to be so careful of, because they can be not just career shorteners, but they can be life shorteners at the same time. So
Yeah, definitely.
I suppose the message there is, if you end up with a concussion, treat it seriously. Don't just shrug it off. It's important to get it seen to, checked out, make sure that you are cleared by an actual medical professional. And just follow all doctors' advice with it. But moving on to the match itself, we had Io Sky and Morgan start off the match, but after all of the events of last week, Morgan really wasn't very keen on getting into it with Io Sky just off the bat there, and makes a really quick
seemed
tag
a little bit standoffish anyway through the entire match. So I haven't got a huge amount of notes for this one. I struggled with this match. I'm not sure if it was the first one, if it was the first match back for me that I just hadn't quite, kind of still felt a little bit rusty. But this one, like, Liv Morgan did feel quite standoffish. We saw an awful lot of Raquel Rodriguez in the ring against both Dakota Kai and Io Sky for most of it. I'd say 3/4 of the match, we probably saw more Raquel Rodriguez than we did Liv Morgan. But what we did see from Liv was not bad quality, to be fair. Like, what's the word I'm looking for?
I feel like they definitely seem to be keeping her in reserve a little bit. So she's making regular TV appearances. She's not wrestling in matches, but she's not getting overly involved.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is she
one of the biggest standout parts for
maybe?
me wasn't even the in-ring action. It's the fact that Michael Cole cannot seem to tell the difference between Io Sky and Dakota Kai.
And I mean, you'd have thought, for a gentleman who's worked for that company as long as he has, he'd be able to tell the difference between the two superstars.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Cole is a fantastic announcer, and no shade to him at all. He's done it for so many years. He's not my favourite announcer by any way, shape, or form.
No, we all know that would be good old JR for you.
100%. JR is the GOAT of announcers. He really is. But yeah, it felt, I don't know, slightly unprofessional for Cole, which is unusual for him, because he's normally sort of very super professional about all of these bits and pieces. It's unusual for him to make so many mistakes in the space of one match. See, this is where me and you sort of disagree a little bit, is that you struggled with this match. I seem to have quite a lot of notes concerning this match, because there's a lot of spots to call, especially when you're trying to break down a match that involves just Io Sky on her own. Io Sky is always full of high spots and things like that. They don't call her the Queen of the Sky for nothing.
No, and she is very, very talented, and well, they all are to a point. I think out of this match, Raquel Rodriguez was the weakest one again in there. but I'm not sure. Like we said, they were holding Liv Morgan back. Are they trying to give Raquel Rodriguez a little bit of an opportunity to actually show what she can do, or are they trying to see, like, it was Liv nursing something that she probably didn't want to step away for, so they've basically just kind of let Raquel Rodriguez take the brunt of the damage from Dakota Kai and Io Sky here.
I mean, my thought was that maybe they're trying, because Liv Morgan is now qualified for Elimination Chamber. They don't really want to risk her getting
Injured.
like a plan-changing injury, which makes me think that Liv Morgan's going to play quite a big part in that match. Is sort of extrapolating from that, but there's no reason why there can't be two reasons for that, and they can't achieve two goals at the same time, because we haven't seen a lot of Raquel Rodriguez wrestle in a very long time. And I mean, it was pointed out actually in a video I saw on social media. I forget the social media influencer's name. I do always like to reference them when I see them, but it's they put together a compilation. I think it was the Mae Young Classic tournament from 2018, has pretty much every single one of the heavy hitters from the women's division in there at the moment. And I mean, apart from Liv Morgan, every single woman in that ring was in that Mae Young Classic tournament, including Dakota Kai, Io Sky. All of them were in that classic, and it's just really weird to go back and look. I mean, even a very young Rhea Ripley, before we had Mummy, before we even had the dark hair.
Oh, blimey. But then I suppose when you say the 2018 Mae Young Classic, that was 7 years ago, man. Like, a lot has changed in professional wrestling in that time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there are huge changes going on, sometimes week in, week out. So we're not certainly not short on those changes as it goes. But I mean, yeah, as I said, lots of high spots, lots of just spots in general. I mean, one bit I particularly picked out. I had to go back and watch it about 3 or 4 different times, because I think either side of this there was high spots that I wanted to at least make a note of. But one that I want to sort of give a certain mention to was at one point, sort of quite early on in the match, Io Sky finds herself sort of isolated in Morgan and Rodriguez's corner. As Morgan comes in, lays in a series of kicks, the ref comes in to try and break it up, and just gets all of Liv Morgan in his face, screeching like a fucking banshee at one point, which is showing. I mean, we know there's an unhinged side to Liv Morgan, but yeah, it was an unusual sort of lack of control from Liv Morgan, whereas normally she seems to occupy that space of being unhinged but in control all at the same time.
Yeah. There's a lot of different spots when you get a match that's been selected like this, with the quality of superstar in it. For us, it makes our life incredibly difficult trying to break these down, because no matter how much we try and make a note of it, I know for me, I get to a point where I'm like, oh, there's too much going on. Like, I'm going to spend the next half an hour writing without even watching, and then I end up getting sucked in and I forget to make notes.
Yeah, I have the same issue. It's a case that you're either there making notes so you miss out on something else because you're there writing down. I mean, I'm not. Some people are capable of being able to write coherently without looking at what they're writing. I am not one of those people.
Neither am I. Well, I can type and watch to a point, but I end up cack-handing myself.
Yeah, and after that, if we try to come back to correct the notes afterwards, it just makes absolutely no sense. And I mean, it would arguably be easier for Rich to amend his notes, because again, he types out his notes, whereas I handwrite all of mine, because I just find that easier. But it's complete sort of.
I also think as well, it's a case of you like to sit on the sofa with your feet on the coffee table, chilling out with the kids watching it, where I like to try and hide upstairs in the office where it's a little bit quieter, so I don't have as many distractions going on. So it kind of it does make life a bit easier for us both.
But back to the match. I mean, with Io Sky and Dakota Kai, we know we're in for a high flying match. We know with Liv Morgan, we're in for a technically sound match. So there's loads of bits and pieces we could pick out. And I did make quite a lot of notes on it, but instead of sort of droning through them and not really sort of picking out some of the best bits, we saw in the late stages of the match, we saw Io Sky tag in and basically taking on both Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez out of the ring for a suicide dive to the outside. She then gets Morgan back in the ring to hit a missile drop kick from the top rope, followed by a bullet train attack for a 2 count. I mean, that was a hell of a lot of punishment for Liv Morgan to take, as well as one of the more defining spots of the match came at the end, where we've seen before with Rodriguez and Morgan, where Rodriguez will use Morgan as a weapon, and Morgan's quite happy to be used as a weapon. However, this week
time,
I think
it didn't quite go to plan, really, did it? Sky managed to get her legs up, or get her knees up, sorry. And when you're being planted directly onto your back onto someone else's knees, yeah, no. I know we sit here and we all know it's scripted. We're not stupid. Like the same as everyone else, that it's predetermined, but the moves still hurt. And I'm not going to lie to you, that move looked like it hurts.
Oh yeah, I mean the outcome is predetermined, but the action in the ring is, while it may be, some of it may be choreographed, it's still gonna, if you land a flat back bump on your back, it's still gonna fucking hurt.
Oh yes, definitely. And that's just into the ring. We're not. There's videos online that I've seen with Charles Robinson, who is one of the referees that also is part of their ring building crew too. And he kind of shows the whole process of building that there is no springs. There is nothing there to give apart from a few sheets, a few steel beams, and some sort of 1.5 inch thick wood. That is all you're bouncing onto.
Yeah, it's even the most rudimentary ring is pretty much built on quite solidly built sort of wood boxes and things like that. It's there isn't a lot to those rings, and they have zero give in them whatsoever.
The only thing that's giving is your body.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the other part of Rodriguez using Morgan as a weapon, I mean, at one point I'm not entirely sure what happened, but she ends up using Morgan as a bit of a battering ram. And I believe that there was that Morgan ends up getting some colour, but I don't think it was intentional, because that was one nasty gash she ended up getting on her face.
Yeah, she was leaking in the ring, and then there is a little section a little bit later, which we will get into in more detail. There's like a little backstage thing with the Judgment Day, and you can see that Liv has got, like you said, one hell of a gash above her right eye. It was actually on her right eye, to be fair. So yeah, something went wrong somewhere, but that looked like it hurt. And bless her, she took that like a champ, and she carried on.
She did, but didn't carry on to a win, unfortunately, as Io Sky ends up picking up a pinfall win on Morgan herself after a successful attempt at over the moonsault, which sort of closed out that match, which I think gave maybe Io Sky a little bit of closure over Morgan from last week. But we'll move on sort of swiftly from there, just because something that happened right at the end of Monday Night Raw last week, we touched on it a little bit during last week's podcast. And this was Kevin Owens coming back rather unexpectedly after the war he had at Royal Rumble to attack Sami Zayn.
No, this is because Sami didn't really help him at Royal Rumble. So Kevin was peeved that Sami was out at ringside during his match, but did not help him win his title. And we've seen this before in the past with Kevin and Sammy, where they kind of 1 minute they're friends, the next minute they're not, the next minute they're friends, the next minute they're not. We knew something was going to go down, and I think they've just set themselves up now for it's going to be their WrestleMania moment this year. I think will be Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. This what you call it, package pile driver that Sami Zayn took last week. I think that was the start of a nice little storyline into WrestleMania.
Well, it's certainly given Sami Zayn a few weeks off, I think. As we're told during this little recap that Sami Zayn is suffering with some spinal compression and major nerve damage from
Sami
the package
Zayn's
pile driver itself.
Absolute workhorse though. He's been week in, week out since the start of the Bloodline story. So that guy he deserves a bit of time off, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And the injury report that they give us is completely believable based on the move that he's taken. I mean, yeah, spinal compression from landing on the back, essentially on the back of your neck, as well as major nerve damage. I mean, most of your nerves are running up your spine. Completely believable. So, yeah, it was certainly something to behold. But we'll move on from that, as I'm sure more will come out in.
Just hope he's got a decent internet connection to be able to watch the build up for Elimination Chamber and listen to finishers and factions.
Yeah, 100%. So match 2 on the card, while we mention Elimination Chamber, is an Elimination Chamber qualifying match. It's a women's singles match. And it is Bayley versus Lyra Valkyria, our current women's intercontinental champion.
Now, I've been waiting to see a little bit more of Lyra Valkyria. And before we go too far into this match, I did not realise until watching both Monday Night Raw and NXT this week how many English superstars are currently floating around the WWE.
Well, be careful who you're calling English, because Lyra Valkyria is actually
she's Irish. She is. You're right. How many European superstars? Let's put it that way. We don't want to offend the poor woman. Even though...
I'm going to cut you off there just before you end up saying something we'll both regret.
So not only do we have Lyra Valkyria, obviously we've got Sheamus. I didn't realise that... I can't remember his goddamn name now. Ridge Holland was English until something popped up in NXT, and it was like there was an awful lot of European superstars that I completely pushed the boat out on, and that's, without mentioning the guys like Pete Dunne and some of the other smaller ones you don't see very often. So
this is it. I mean, the fact that we're getting so many superstars, even just based from the United Kingdom. So, we've got several superstars from Scotland, a good couple from Ireland. We've got Pete Dunne, who's actually a Brummie. I knew
as soon as you said that it was going to come out.
I was going to mention him he was going to get honourable mention regardless. I mean, he comes up later on in the promotion anyway. So
he does.
But yes, no, we've. Lyra Valkyria. I've seen a few videos of her on social media. As one of her other sort of Irish counterpart wrestlers in the WWE, Sheamus, has started doing his own workout videos.
Ooh.
But in fairness, I know there's going to be like quite an age gap between Sheamus and Lyra, but Lyra's solid, mate. You see the size of Sheamus and you think, yeah, he's well put together and all the rest of it. But I've seen several videos now of them doing sort of the same workout exercise between the two of them. And Lyra runs rings round Sheamus. Literal rings.
She's got age on her side where, like, Sheamus is like us. He's an old man now. Especially in when it comes to this sort of particular career choice, unless you really, really are the pinnacle of human perfection. Once you start getting past your like sort of late 30s, early 40s, this industry takes its toll.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously, like neither me or Adam have ever been in a wrestling ring. I do reckon I could have taken Bron Breaker's spear better than I show speed though. But
I reckon you'd have been out for a good couple of weeks recovering from the back pain that spear brought with it.
I still probably reckon I could have taken a better job though.
I reckon I probably could have done it as well, but
show speed just got absolutely ragdolled. But
he did.
yeah.
Anyway,
we've got to
we
see
are
some
digressing.
quality digressions today.
Right, so yeah, one of the big points I want to point out before this match starts, obviously, Roxanne Perez is in attendance, not in a professional standpoint, but she is there in the crowd, and actually due to compete against Bayley and Julia at NXT Vengeance Day, which is this Saturday.
There will be a bonus episode at some point on either Sunday or Monday, purely for the fact that I'm at work this weekend and I'm not entirely sure how bad I'm going to feel when I get home.
Which is fair enough. I'm working this weekend as well, so we'll have to sort of play that one by ear. But I'm sure we will have something for you all on Vengeance Day by Monday at the absolute latest. So
Gotta be out before we sit and watch Raw.
Yeah, well, but do you know what? Solid technical wrestling from this match. It wasn't like a terribly exciting match to watch, but if you look at it from the fundamentals of wrestling and look at it from
they did the
pure
basics very,
perspective,
very well.
Yeah,
And that's something we've learned to see from Bayley and from Lyra Valkyria. They're both very, very technical wrestlers that have the ability to go high and take risks, but you will see a lot more ground and pound, so to speak, but a lot more sort of like floor work from these two guys. Bayley, it felt to me like she let Lyra get out of her system what she needed to without being too over the top.
I think realistically they had to very much sort of toe a line with this match. Now again, Lyra Valkyria is the current women's IC champion. We can't forget that fact. And if Bayley were just working if Lyra didn't have the strap, I think it would probably have been more of a squash match than anything else. But they have to protect the championship at the same time. So it was a very.
I don't personally feel they got this match right. But
I think they towed the line pretty well. I couldn't think of any other way they could have done that any better, because there were some fantastic moves from both Lyra and Bayley. We knew sort of what to expect from Bayley when she came in. Lyra's still a little bit of an unknown in my eyes. I haven't seen a lot of her wrestling to know what to expect from her just yet. But all together, I'm not mad at the match. I will be honest.
Mad to a point. I think that Bayley's getting overworked at the moment, and we see Bayley on pretty much every episode of WWE programming at the moment. She's on Raw, she's on NXT, she's on SmackDown, she's showing up at all the PLEs. Bayley's getting pushed hard in several different directions. Like we said, she's got a match against Julia and Roxanne Perez on Saturday night at NXT Vengeance. And then she's had this qualifier for Elimination Chamber. We've seen a lot of Bayley. Now,
We are seeing a lot of Bailey,
which is
and
nice. I'm not complaining. I just think if we're going to see as much of Bailey as we are, I think they should have reversed the decision and put the win on the other person.
but would it, seeing as how every superstar that has an elimination chamber qualifier has only one elimination chamber qualifier, it's I can sort of see what you mean. I mean, it's a case that, as we've said, Bailey is also competing for the NXT Women's Champion on Saturday at Vengeance Day. The fact that she's now been booked in the Elimination Chamber sort of casts a lot of doubt. In fact, it rules out the possibility altogether of Bailey walking out of Vengeance Day as champion. It's not going to happen because she's not going to be allowed to go into Elimination Chamber as the NXT Women's Champion. It's just to then potentially go on for a chance to face off for one of the main roster women's champions as well. They've done double strap champions before. I mean, AEW have currently got a 3-strap champion in Mercedes Moné, but that we're not here to talk about AEW. It's WWE, and it's not something they do very regularly. So I can sort of see where you're coming from that perspective, but it would have been a massive, massive win for Lyra had she got a win over Bailey to qualify for the Elimination Chamber in 2 weeks. So we could see. I mean, we saw a lot of, as I said, we saw a lot of spots in this match that were sort of really, I thought were really good. Valkyria hit a missile drop kick a missile drop kick out of the ring. It was almost like a suicide dive missile drop kick sort of maneuver to Bailey. Bailey, we saw a sunset, one of those moves that has to hit the bingo card every week. It's a sunset flip, but this was a sunset flip buckle bomb, as the commentary team started referring to it. Valkyria hit a tornado DDT into a fisherman suplex on the outside, which was, I mean, technically brilliant. Loved it. Every second of it was pure magic. Yeah, I mean, Bailey does end up picking up a pinfall win after a reversal of a small package pin. So Lyra tried small packaging. Bailey, with a lot, obviously, of many years of in-ring experience, has the wherewithal to know how to reverse that, and goes ahead and gets the win. Ends up qualifying for the Elimination Chamber. If I remember correctly, this puts her as the 4th woman in the Elimination Chamber, which means there's only 2 slots left, because we've currently got Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, and
Bailey.
And Bailey now, yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So, yeah, I mean, we've got our 4th entrant into the Elimination Chamber, which is always good to see.
Yeah, it's nice when these matches start filling up. Because obviously the men's Elimination Chamber has started to fill reasonably nicely as well last week. Last few gaps for that are filled later on in this episode, and I believe the last one is filled next week.
So we've still got a few Elimination Chamber qualifiers for the main match, for the men's match. Sorry, because we've got. I think the last matches are taking place on next week's Raw, so we've still got a few more left to go, but. We'll come back to men's Elimination Chamber later on in the episode. We've got go into a VT promo for Penta.
I have really enjoyed watching Penta the last few weeks. He's definitely been a breath of fresh air to Monday Night Raw. So getting to see a little bit extra of him has always been quite nice. And then we got to see your hometown hero too.
wouldn't necessarily go far as hero, but he's certainly a local boy for me. Yeah, so Penta's calling out Pete Dunne and Ludwig Kaiser in this promo, as last week Pete Dunne interfered in. Well, wouldn't necessarily call it an interference in his match. He walked out very last moments of the match with Ludwig Kaiser and Penta last week. Caused a bit of a distraction. I mean, Penta still picked up a win over Ludwig Kaiser, which Kaiser did not take very well. And we go straight from that VT sort of into an interview with Kaiser and Jackie Redmond. And Penta's issued a challenge.
Really much of an
Kaiser's
interview.
definitely not turning it down. Yeah, there's a bit of a confrontation between Pete Dunne and Kaiser there, but we
That's
essentially end up with
basically just Pete Dunne telling Kaiser to stay out of his business.
Yeah,
he doesn't
pretty
need
much.
his help, and he'll do it his way, which is the Pete Dunne is the king of hardstyle, isn't he? So it'll be done one way or another.
Yeah, this is it. But it's revealed next week we've got a match between Pete Dunne and Penta for next week's Raw. And Kaiser is basically has said that he's going to stay out. He's going to leave Dunne to face Penta, and I'm not sure I believe him. I'm going to be honest. It's the look on his face. I don't know if that's just his face. But
He's got one of those faces that everyone wants to slap.
yeah,
Or me
it's that
personally,
smug
I'd love
smile
to.
he has.
Oh yes, but we did get to see a little bit of something special at the ending of this little section backstage. And you never used to be a massive fan of this particular person, but over the last year, I think he's grown on me a little bit more than he is. Probably about 10 years too late, I'm not going to lie. But we got to see the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, walk around backstage and then walk out to be able to go and have a nice little conversation in the ring as well.
So yeah, I mean, there's a few other bits that we need to cover before we get to that point. Or at least one more bit, as there was another backstage promo between now and then, where we see Lyra Valkyria, and I'm still not sure what to call these guys because they've got Alpha Babes written across their shirts, but they're still referred to as Alpha Academy.
These guys just seem like a bunch of misfits.
And this was sort of Alpha Babe sort of commiserating Valkyria on her win. She was so very close to winning that last match. American Made sort of come in, and it's basically it's going to sound like a bit of me saying the same word twice, but it's a promotion promo. It's they're teasing the tag titles match as the lads from American Made are facing off against the Viking Warrior the War Raiders.
How many times have they repackaged the same tag team? They've had 4 different names so far.
Yeah, and I don't know why I keep one. I should really learn that it's gonna that is what they're going into, but it's never quite 100% certain. But yeah, so that's a teaser promo for the main event later on. We then move into, as you said, AJ Styles' in-ring promo. I mean, this is the first one we've seen in the Netflix era. It's certainly the first one in Raw in a little while, and he gets a pretty decent pop coming out. I mean, he's he's obviously had quite a storied history in his career, not just in WWE, but when he's been in TNA out of Nashville, and he's always done really well in the town.
Yeah, I mean, AJ, like I said, I probably am 10 years late to the party with AJ, but at the moment, obviously, he's just come off quite a long injury from that happened, ironically, in the same place, in the same stadium, but for SmackDown rather than Raw, 4 months earlier. I'm not entirely sure what What was the injury, Adam? Do you know?
I am not 100% sure. I'm sure I did look into it, but I can't. I didn't make a note of it, at least not that I'm not that I can see in my notes here.
He looked jacked. Like, normally we see AJ, he looks reasonable, but nothing over the top. When he looked huge.
I mean, I actually did make a note. I've just found my note where it was. My handwriting is atrocious. But it's something called a Liz Frank injury. I'm not sure if that's a ligament or a muscle or a bone. I'm not a medical professional in any way, shape, or form, but that is what I looked up. I looked it up, and
Oh, it's
yeah,
a
I mean,
fracture by the looks of it.
possibly, but it's a case that I think AJ was almost hinted at the fact that he was before his injury, he was possibly looking at retiring
Iron.
soon, or
Yeah, and now, I mean, I'd hate to see him retire. I know we're definitely past his better days, but he's one of those workhorses that if you look after him correctly, he will just keep going and going and going. And it's been, we haven't seen him for what's it, about 4 months. He's come back. He looks great, and I really want to see him like get into it with someone.
don't get me wrong. I've been a big AJ Styles fan for a long time. I used to watch him in TNA, and really enjoyed it. It was, my opinion, his best days were the days when he had short hair rather than his soccer mom haircut.
Yes.
But
And when he
we
had the
grow,
Gallows
we live, we
Namerson
learn.
protecting him.
Yeah. But so I think TNA did get the best years of AJ Styles' career.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, he's still got more to give. And as you said, if he's booked correctly and he's managed correctly, then yeah, he's still got loads of years left. But somebody that sort of didn't appreciate him coming out and making some noise was Dom Mysterio.
Which it was a weird one, but out of all the people in the locker room to come out and have a word with AJ or try and get a piece of AJ, that they sent out Dom and Carlito. Like, there's no.
Yeah.
I don't think the Judgment Day were involved in his injury, but
I know he's had history with Judgment Day in the past. Sort of, this was before Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley split off, which AJ Styles does actually address. It's like the last time I saw Judgment Day, you had Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, and
Where's Finn Balor?
Yeah, they aren't here anymore.
What happened to Finn Balor?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he points out the fact that Finn Balor wasn't there as well, and this is after Dom gets the booing of a lifetime. I mean, this guy couldn't even start his part of this promo without being drowned out by a sea of boos. And I think the only injury AJ Styles was in any danger at that point of picking up was possibly a hearing injury.
Yeah, tinnitus. All that ringing. Oh, you know what? We sit here and we say there's some superstars we don't like, there's some we do. You know, every professional wrestling fan will have their opinions. Dom is one of those really strange ones that he's so good as a heel that you can't help but love the fact that when you see him, you know you're going to have some fun taking a piss out of him.
Oh yeah,
like, I think the WWE
he plays a heel character.
He plays
a heel character insanely well,
just like his dad used to. Ray's never been a great heel.
Rey Mysterio very rarely turned heel, and it was mostly because of his size.
It was never going to be the late great Eddie Guerrero, but
I mean,
as
his
much
unofficial
as that joke is
Dom Mysterio's unofficial father of Eddie Guerrero used to play a heel really well, but
I generally think if you put a DNA test out there somewhere that he probably is Eddie Guerrero's, not actually Rey Mysterio's.
it's not outside the realms of possibility, I suppose. It
can't
certainly
be.
make for a fun storyline.
I-
But yeah, I mean, for now, one of the things that AJ Styles has always been a really good high flying superstar. The other thing that he's always been really good with is a mic in his hand.
yes,
The man can cut a promo.
yes, he can, and he's cut some
And
incredible ones over the years as well. I mean, just to throw out there, when the face that ran the place went up against the almighty John Cena, those were some of the greatest promos that we saw at the time, and it was,
yeah,
they are both phenomenal when it comes to a microphone in their hand, and the fact they had both of them in the same ring feuding with each other just showed the world how good these microphone users are. It's not all about who can get what done in the ring. That microphone is just as important.
Oh, definitely. Being able to connect with your audience, being able to connect with the audience through what you say, not just what you do, is an important part of being a professional wrestler. And any professional wrestler would back me up on that. But yeah, I mean, he's Styles has always been a good one to be able to turn a phrase, and this one that he turned this time round was sort of giving props for Dom's work ethic, but reminds him how he'll always be Rey Mysterio's punk ass
kid. Which sent Dirty Dominic into a bit of a. He was not very happy with that. He went for a cheap shot, which. A cheap shot from Dom doesn't. Yeah, a cheap shot from Dom, which is normally just a shot. It don't really seem to have too much of a to it. There's no content to that particular thing because of the way he plays his character, and he plays it very, very well. I'm not knocking him at all, but every shot that Dom takes is a cheap shot.
Yeah, it's a case that Dom Mysterio came out with Carlito, and no shade to Carlito. I'm glad he's managed to make his way back into the WWE because he was always a very entertaining superstar to watch, especially when he was in ring or backstage. But he's not necessarily the most intimidating person in the world, and
Not in
Dom
those purple
Mysterio
skinnies,
most
he wasn't.
definitely is not.
I mean, there are intimidating people in the WWE, and then there's Carlito.
Yeah.
The only thing that would be intimidating about Carlito is, like AJ pointed out, those purple skinnies do not fit you, my good sir.
Oh yes, the purple skinnies.
The purple skinnies that were probably filled with skiddies by the time those three finished brawling.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, when AJ ripped his top off, though, and you really do get to see how well he's been working out, and how, like I said at the start, he looks huge. You actually get to see a proper look on how much work he's put in the gym, especially considering that injury he had was actually a foot injury. So that makes it. So I did have a little look into it. Liz Frank injury is an injury to the bones or ligaments in the center of the foot. So that would, definitely slow him down a little bit, considering we know how much of a high flyer AJ is. So he spent a lot of time in the gym working on the rest of it while that's been healing, and you can definitely tell he looks good. And I think when we get to see him back in a ring in a match capacity, we're going to have a hell of a match. I think he's going to have a point to prove.
Before we sort of discuss that a little bit further, because we will discuss that a little bit further, we're going to move on to an arena side promo with Seth freaking Rollins.
With Jackie Redmond up in the where do we call this? Like, what is this? Because it's kind of in the crowd, but it's not in the crowd, but it's not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is why I've taken to calling them arena side, because it's not ringside, it's not necessarily backstage, it's out in the crowd, but it's like a mezzanine balcony sort of thing. They're not in a box or anything like that. They're out on what essentially is a public walkway, which they've quarantined off for the purposes of the promo. So I've just started calling it arena side, as that makes sense to me. But yeah, Seth Rollins cutting a very similar arena side promo than the one we saw CM Punk cut shortly before the Royal Rumble. That may also have been with Jackie Redmond at that point, but sort of reviews the current match chamber entries, being Cena, Punk, and McIntyre. And yeah, it sort of promotes his match next week, which is I think it's going to be the final men's elimination chamber qualifier, which sees Seth Rollins face Finn Balor for a spot in the chamber, and sort of highlights that after the announcement at the very beginning of the show, that the winner of the men's elimination chamber decides essentially the men's elimination chamber match decides who Cody Rhodes' opponent is at WrestleMania, as the elimination chamber gets a guaranteed main event at WrestleMania facing the champion that was not selected by the Royal Rumble winner.
Yeah, see, there's a lot of names in here that I'd like to see face Cody, but I think we all know who's going to be that one to face Cody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm calling it that Cena's going to walk out of Elimination Chamber with a win. It would surprise me greatly if that's not how they're going to play it.
Well,
because I've called it like this for a few weeks now.
You've got to look at it this way as well. After Elimination Chamber, there are no other events to get you to WrestleMania. Elimination Chamber, I believe, is the last one, isn't it?
I mean, I think even if Cena does, even on the outside shot that Cena doesn't win, we're looking at Cena. It's going to be Cena's last ever Royal. It's going to be Cena's last ever WrestleMania as an in-ring combatant. He ain't missing WrestleMania.
No,
they will find a way to weasel him in.
I personally think that I'd like to see Cena win the Elimination Chamber. I'd like to see him beat Cody at WrestleMania for the title. I would then like to see him drop it back to Cody probably after about a month, right? Like the first pay-per-view after WrestleMania, I'd like to see Cody bring his rematch clause back in and then get his title back, just so they can say that Cena's beaten Flair's record. He's done it all in the same promotion. Obviously, any professional wrestling fan should know that Ric Flair, yes, has had the most titles in professional wrestling, but he's done it over 3 different promotions, all owned by Vince at one point or another. But Cena would be the first person to have gone into WWE and done it 17 times. So I'd like to see that happen. I think every wrestling fan.
I don't think they'll have Cena drop it quite as quickly, but
I mean, I don't want to see him hold on to it for the entire year. That's the problem. I think once they've given him what he deserves, and we're not talking about a want here. This is a man who's given WWE 23 years of his life, if not more. Right? This is a guy who's, like he says, he missed weddings, birthdays, and funerals for that business.
Yeah, I mean, the guy personified workhorse ethic. He was there week in, week out, didn't miss a beat, even when he was. In some cases, even when he was out on injury, he was still there, still actively just wasn't competing, and. Yeah, the guy has earned the right to be able to call the shots of how he wants his last year in WWE as an active wrestler to go.
I think if they can let him have the title
at some point,
he does need to break that record. But we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. So part of this arena side promo is we have Finn Balor appear. Basically to respond to I took what Rollins was saying about the match with Finn Balor. He sort of breezed past it and made it sound like, yeah, Balor's not a challenge. I'm basically going to walk out of that with the win. Which, don't get me wrong, I do genuinely believe that Seth Rollins will walk out of next week's match with his ticket punched to Elimination Chamber. I do think he's going to be the last person in the match, but it does feel a bit disrespectful to everything that Finn Balor is, to make him sound like a bit of a pushover, essentially.
I mean, you've got to think as well that Finn Balor and Kevin Owens, where did that come from? Finn Balor and Seth Rollins have been going at it for years. I mean, these two were in the inaugural Universal Championship match.
They were.
Actually, wasn't Finn Balor the winner of that match, but had to vacate it the next day because of an injury?
Yes, I believe it was. And yeah, Finn Balor hasn't enjoyed a massive amount of like single success since, really. He sort of it very much seemed like, to a certain degree, he peaked in NXT, and he's enjoyed a few title reigns with within the main roster, but never anything quite as lofty as sort of WWE champ or heavyweight champion.
Yeah, no, he's I'm pretty sure he's only had the lower end cards and the lower end titles. He's never had anything huge.
Yeah, I think he's done a run. I think he's done a run or two as IC champ and maybe a run as US champ. He's held tag team gold as well, but other than that, it's he's never held one of the either the WWE champ or the heavyweight champ belt since he came up to the main roster so many years ago.
Yeah, I would say I can't even think about when he came up. To be fair, you know, he feels like he's been around since the beginning of professional wrestling for like as long as I can think of. I've seen him at WWE, so you know it's just one of those. He has been around for a long time.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm just having a look here, actually. So, I'm trying to find out about what titles he's won, but all it wants to tell me about his time in New Japan. So I'm guessing, like AJ Styles, I think Finn Balor's best years were outside of WWE.
Well, while we mention New Japan and AJ Styles in the same sentence, there's somebody else that has spent quite a lot of time in Japan under a WWE contract, actually, that has come to light recently, and that is Omos.
Yeah, which is
now
not
I didn't
something...
think he still had a contract. I will be honest, but it seems like he's out there on WWE's dime.
I think he's out there helping with their developmental process. I think Osmos is out doing some training work over there, or learning some training work. Maybe we might see him a little bit more in the performance center, teaching some of the talent of tomorrow how to do what they do.
I thought he was doing some work with developmental, but I thought that was teaching him how to wrestle, because some of the matches that I've seen Omos with has been a bit early Goldberg-esque.
Yeah. I mean, even Goldberg made it into the Hall of Fame, mate.
He did, and it's not disrespecting Goldberg. I'm just saying that if there was somebody I was going to pick to teach anybody how to wrestle, it wouldn't be Omos.
No.
But anyway, again, this is going to be an episode of digressions. It really is.
At least it's not an episode of libations.
This is true, because there'd be even more digressions then. But yeah, sort of Balor points out Rollins' failures in 2025 and sort of how he's on a bit of a downward spiral. They have a bit of a back and forth about who's standing in whose way to WrestleMania, when realistically at this stage they're both standing in each other's way.
Yeah.
And that sort of closes out that promo for it. We then go backstage and see a rare appearance from Raw General Manager Adam Pearce, who's in conversation with AJ Styles, booking a match for next week with AJ Styles versus Dirty Dom Mysterio. And this is why I didn't want to get too much into seeing AJ Styles in ring action because we're going to see it next week.
We are, and I cannot freaking wait. But before we get to see any real action, we get to see a cheeky little glimmer of our current IC title holder, Mr. Bron Breakker, as he walks through the back area.
Yeah, looking a little bit like Woody from Toy Story.
Yeah.
I don't really quite understand where the cowboy hat came in. I realise they're in Tennessee, and the cowboy hat is king.
They're in
But-
Nashville.
But yeah, no, didn't see that at all.
Hey, it's nice to see Bron Breakker putting a bit of a smile on people's face rather than trying to wipe the smile off people's face.
Yeah, this is true. It's nice to see a slight. I don't think it was meant to be a lighter side of Bron Breakker, but it sort of evolved into a lighter side of Bron Breakker. But yeah, it was a very much a sort of a silent exchange between AJ Styles and Bron Breakker until Breakker simply says, "See you around." So
Which is not really
maybe there's
something
an
you'd
IC
expect.
title hunt.
I mean, nice. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be Bron Breakker holding the IC title if AJ goes for it.
No,
We've
I think
said this.
Sheamus-
Yeah, I think it'll be Sheamus with the IC title. If WWE do not book this and give this man his fucking Intercontinental Championship, I'm going to send Triple H a very sternly worded email because I don't think
no,
that's
not
fair.
me, no.
Yeah, he's going to get an email from the anonymous Raw general manager. Oh dear God, that was always a laugh. I've got an email. Shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up, Cole.
Oh, that'd be a
Right.
great T-shirt.
We went from there. Yeah, shut up, Cole, you idiot.
You just made the list.
Match
Yeah.
3 on the card was the men's tag team title. Men's tag team title match. Now, I earlier on said this might have been the main event, and I may have misspoken. I apologise for that. But
I didn't want to pull you
this
up
is
on it, but
between- This is between Eric and Ivar, the War Raiders, and
American
Brutus
made.
Creed and Julius of American Made, accompanied to the ring by Ivy Nile. Now, I don't think I got a massive amount of notes for this match. I will be honest. I think I possibly may have struggled with this match just a touch.
I will use what I have to try and see if we can bump this out a little bit because I also struggled a little bit with this match, and we've had a conversation off podcast that we're probably going to have again on the podcast that neither of us were a big fan of the way this went down.
Yeah, so
This match felt like a filler for me personally to start off with. I know they've been teasing it the last few weeks, but for a tag match, for a title match in the middle of the card is one thing, but it didn't have, there was no pizzazz or there's nothing to it that made me really go, shit, this is a title match. It just felt like they were trying to fill a space, which is not
was
something
very
you can do with
basic.
War Raiders.
it was very basic tag team wrestling. And I think this had more to do with the team from American Made than it did with the War Raiders. War Raiders, we know they're going to come out, they're going to knock the shit out of people, and then go home. American Made they've been a lot of mouth, and from what I've seen, there weren't a lot of substance to it.
No.
And my biggest problem with this match was the ending.
Which
The match
was
ends in a
jump.
DQ finish for a title match where the challengers are the ones that end up earning the DQ. And there's no reason for it. And this was basically the bread and butter of the conversation that myself and Rich had off podcast about this match specifically, was that the ending to this match was horse shit. It really was.
Yeah, that you were better off not having this match this week, putting it next week and giving it a bit more extra time, or even drop one of the promos around it, to give them a bit of extra time to fill. because from what we did see, Eric and Ivar had some nice spots. And they used their moves and the time they had in the ring well. American Made, I'm not sure if they were told to kind of go and just be really standoffish. They seem quite stiff, as though they're possibly, a little bit of IRL heat between the guys, but you can't really. I don't think they were given enough time, and then the ending was very rushed. Hitting the war. American Made hit the War Raiders with their own titles to get themselves DQ'd, which basically just meant that they got to hang out with their own. It wasn't really much to do to it.
Yeah, they threw away. I mean, it makes no logical sense for the challenger to throw away what could be their one and only shot at gaining tag team title gold. And it makes sense if a champion team does that. So if War Raiders had hit American Made to try and claim championships advantage to retain their title if they were in trouble, then yeah, fair enough. I'd have understood that.
It was a very strange ending.
But the way they writ that match, I'm sorry, it just made no sense whatsoever, and I just can't find any way to get behind that.
No. Yeah, it really was strange. I've even put in my notes that it felt like it was just being used to fill a spot on the card. That maybe they couldn't cut a promo long enough to be able to fill the what was there, or they didn't have enough VT footage, maybe.
Like, I'm the guy that will normally sort of try and find the positive side to each match. I'll try and find the balance so that it's not just us raining shit on WWE's parade. Not that they
didn't
us
help
raining
themselves
shit
with
makes
this
any
match.
difference in the grand scheme of it all, but I couldn't find a positive side to that match. Really couldn't.
What? Yeah, but the positive side to that match, I think, was after we watched that terrible ending, we got to go backstage and see Dirty Dom and Finn Balor having a bit of a conversation. That was definitely better than the match previously.
It certainly was. I mean, we went back into. So the Judgment Day seem to build themselves a little clubhouse in every arena they go into, and this is where they hang out. This is where they've got their video games, and they go to do whatever it is that they want to do. And we had sort of Carlito, Liv Morgan, supposedly trying to. I mean, Carlito's trying to gain some sympathy for a non-existent injury at this point.
The only thing that got injured in that encounter was Carlito's pride. Those damn skinny jeans.
Yeah, pretty much. But this is where we got to see sort of the true extent of Liv Morgan's facial injury from earlier on, because there was a lot of blood, and
she had a hell of a hole in it.
I was trying to make out if it was intentional color or if it was accidental, because it was, it wasn't entirely clear. And it's still not clear, but all that was clear was that was one hell of a gash put in Liv Morgan's pretty face.
Yeah, it was a hell of a split above the eye. Well, it wasn't even above the eye. It was literally right on the side of her eye. It was quite a nasty little tap. So, however that happened, I'm kind of didn't look like she had any stitches in there, but I'm kind of glad she didn't need any.
So we've seen this play out before. I think we saw it last week or the week before. Finn Balor comes in, basically says, yeah, everything's gone to shit. What's going on? And sort of Dom sticking up for everybody else. I mean, Finn Balor seems to be really sort of trying to paint himself in the role of leader of the Judgment Day since Damian Priest left. But it just seems that everybody seems to be rallying behind sort of Dom Mysterio at this point.
Yeah, and obviously, like, Judgment Day are quite weak compared to where they used to be. So whatever they're planning on doing be intriguing to know. Obviously, this is where you've got Dom saying, "Look, dude, we need more people," and Finn's like, "No, we don't." So, are we going to see Finn get kicked out of the Judgment Day or leave the Judgment Day, and then Dom go on a bit of a recruiting sesh?
I think we might do. It'd be interesting to find out who it is they're going to try and recruit into the Judgment Day.
Well, I did
can't
see a little rumor. So obviously we are recording this a little bit later than Monday. AEW have released some of their talent since this was, Monday Night Raw went live, and we are recording this. So we now have Alistair Black is now a free agent. Miro, formerly known as Rusev, is now a free agent, and there was another gentleman whose name I cannot remember that was also released from AEW. But yeah, like I said, I can't remember his name.
No, I can't think. I know who you're talking about, and I can't think who it is either.
Oh, Ricky Stark. Yeah, it was
Right, okay.
Ricky Stark. So a few of those have all been released, pending, I'm guessing, 90-day no-compete clauses. Could we possibly see Alistair Black make an appearance back on WWE? And could he be the guy that slots in to take over the Judgment Day? No, I personally hope not. I think if Alistair Black is coming back, I'd like to see him have a damn good singles push first, or at least let him build his own faction. I think we've said this before. I think Judgment Day, this could be the end of Judgment Day now. We've seen a lot of cracks appearing. It might just be a case of they all tend to end up going their separate little ways and reconvene probably a year or so down the line as something other than Judgment Day.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of fractures in it at the moment. I mean, we see it in this promo. There's a lot of infighting, especially between sort of Dom and Finn. There seems to be like a bit of a power vacuum between the two of them. I don't think Dom's trying to push to be leader, but I think everybody's sort of putting him in that position. Whereas Finn is very much trying to force that idea on everybody else, and it is going to end up with Finn being ejected out because at the minute he's coming off a bit sort of egomaniacal. It's a bit odd,
isn't he? He's been
Yeah.
a bit of a dickhead.
which is odd because normally we're saying Dom's being a bit of a dickhead, but you can only have one dickhead in one place.
Unless me and you are sat in the same room and then there's two.
Yeah, this is true, but we don't try and out dickhead one another. We have a tendency to,
We're just joint dickheads.
yeah, pretty much. It just gets worse. But yeah, so we get a lot of sort of promotion for future matches in this within this promo. Raquel is in a match next week for an elimination chamber qualifier. We've got Liv and Raquel have got a guaranteed tag title shot coming up, but there's no date on that just yet. More fuel is added to the Finn versus Seth elimination chamber qualifier for next week, as well as AJ Styles versus Dom Mysterio. Now, it is mentioned within this promo that Finn is having nothing to do with the feud that Dom seems to have started with AJ Styles, and I think Finn is very much sort of going out on his own at the minute.
Yeah, which I'd like to see again. I'm not going to lie. I think he's been held back by Judgment Day. He's a very, very talented singles wrestler. We just need to keep him fit and healthy, and hope he can work hard enough to get the push he deserves. Then after we spend our time backstage with Judgment Day and Finn Balor, we stay backstage for a little bit longer, actually, because we get to see Damage Control wandering around backstage, bumping into the current women's champion, Mami.
Yeah, and they have a little bit of an exchange. I mean, there's always a bit of a language barrier when you've got Io Sky conversing with anybody, and that's no shade to her. It just seems to be, it is just the way it is.
Unless, of course, it happens to be that slagging match with Asuka.
Yeah, in which case they're having the time of their lives, but we haven't got a clue what's going
It
on.
was just that bit at the end where she goes, "Bitch." I was like, "Yes."
Yeah.
And what I
but-
liked so much about this was the fact that after Rhea, you know, basically stitched Io Sky up last week by slapping Liv Morgan, she didn't have to try and make this better, but Rhea offers Io a championship match for the Raw after Elimination Chamber, which
So yeah, roaring.
I'm really looking forward to be fair. Like, I know we know that Mami's not dropping the title, but and I'm gonna be so bold as to say I don't think any of the major titles are going to change hands between now and WrestleMania. But
They are all being defended within that time frame. So we've got
we
obviously
have
Ripley
that option.
versus
Io
Ripley versus
Sky.
Io Sky in 3 weeks.
Yep.
We've got this Saturday the NXT Women's Championship is being defended. And we've also got, I believe, if I remember correctly, Friday Night SmackDown has a women's title match this week between Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax.
Okay. Fair. So yeah, I don't think that even though all the major titles are being defended, I don't think we're going to see a major title change hands between now and WrestleMania. But
That is tradition. They don't. They always have a title. They always have a title defense, but it very rarely changes hands.
Yeah, it will
because
be
they
nice to
use
see
Royal
Io
Rumble.
have that opportunity to open up and really kind of show us what she can do, because we've seen her wrestle in other places against other people, but this is Mami's the top of the top at the moment in that women's division. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a match Io can give her. And hopefully they don't squash her too hard.
I don't think they're going to let her squash her too hard. In all fairness, I don't see them killing any momentum that Io Sky has built by squashing her. It just doesn't make sense to do that.
No, as I said, they won't let her have the title just yet, but they will. I think, and I do think at some point soon, Io Sky will hold a major singles title. But I don't think they're gonna do Rhea like that just before WrestleMania.
No, definitely not. But yeah, so we have that match announced for the Raw after Elimination Chamber, which is in 3 weeks' time. We then go to an in-ring promo with the Second City Saint.
CM Punk. I have been, you know what, like every pro wrestling fan, I think that 10-year break without having CM Punk has made me feel like a small child again. Because now every time I hear that music, I'm bouncing. It does not matter whether he's coming out for a match or if he's coming out with a microphone in his hand. You know you are getting the best CM Punk has to offer.
And it's the fact that we don't get obviously a couple of the promos this week we've had pre-warning of. We knew AJ Styles was coming back. It was announced last week.
Yep.
We knew so we've known about a lot of the big promos that were coming. We could either see it coming or we could we were told that it was going to happen. But with CM Punk's promos recently, they're not unplanned, but they are unannounced. We don't know when he's going to turn up, but he turns up.
Yeah, he's one of those. He's a workhorse. He is pretty. If he's not wrestling, he's there cutting a promo, or he's promoting something else, or he's trying to get his face on the front of the program, or his own ice cream bar.
He's chasing those ice cream bars, bro.
He is. He's out there grinding the ice cream, and you can't say the guy ain't working hard enough for it. I mean, he's making his money and he's making it well.
Yeah.
And we've seen some quality mic action from Punk over the years, and I didn't know if they were going to hold him back a little bit with a microphone when he came back. But they've basically I think Trips has basically just said to him, there we go, say what you got to say.
Well, it's sort of what happened during the Raw walkout a few years back. It was a case that they just said, "Yeah, you're on commentary, Phil. Go nuts."
Right, and he even got to wear Trips' blazer.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's a pay rise. Well, he got double duties. You got double pay, so you got to ring the bell too. You got to wear Hunter's blazer. That boy got looked after that day. He made some dollars.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But yeah, I mean, it's CM Punk comes and cuts quite a. I class this as a bit of a humble promo for CM Punk, which
Yes.
isn't something we get very often, because he comes out and sort of accepts that he made a lot of claims before the Royal Rumble that he was going to go in and win the Royal Rumble.
He didn't,
He didn't win the Royal Rumble.
and he has been quite humble about it. To be fair, which, like you said, it's not something we expect from Phil.
No,
I mean, we
definitely
normally-
not.
I mean, that guy's ego is 2 steps above mine, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he also highlights something that none of the other superstars have dared go anywhere near, which is very on brand for CM Punk, is that John Cena has not had to fight a qualifying match for the Elimination Chamber. He declared himself for the Elimination Chamber. He said, therefore he is, sort of thing. And CM Punk has basically taken that as an open invitation to target him openly during the Elimination Chamber match, where I think if anybody can, it's going to be a case that CM Punk is going to be looking to eliminate John Cena from his last ever Elimination Chamber, his last ever wrestling event in
Toronto.
Canada, I believe.
This last one in Toronto, I know. I'm not sure if it's the last one in Canada.
Ah, fair enough. I knew it was something along those lines, but
It's also his last Elimination Chamber, so
very much puts across the point that he's going to be fighting tooth and nail to get to Mania. He will do whatever it is that he needs to do. Now, this is where I've got to highlight something to Rich, because he will have missed last week and the amount of joy that I took in Drew McIntyre's new nickname.
Drew McIntyre.
Drew McIntyre.
Just because I was ill does not stop me from watching LA Knight videos on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that is now McIntyre's new name. There's only a few occasions where I will call him anything else, but McIntyre is the one at the minute.
Still not going to say I'd call it to his face, though.
I'd give it a good go.
He'd knock my shit out.
He'd knock my shit out too, but only if he can fucking catch me.
I mean, have you seen the speed that guy can run around the outside of the ring? I'm not even.
He doesn't have to run fast. He just has to run long enough for me to get winded.
Or find a tray of hot cross buns.
Yeah, pretty much. As long as they're not being eaten directly out of the packet, you fucking heathen.
Oh, mate, do you know how much hate that TikTok got? It was brilliant. It was, if professional wrestlers used social media as much as they possibly could, that TikTok would have put so much heat on me, it would have been unreal. Eating a dry hot cross bun straight out of the packet. Oh.
Well, considering the fact that we're talking about social media and wrestling and wrestlers, we may as well come to the next part of this promo, which was Logan Paul.
Can we not just forget about the rest of this and just call it there? Because up until this point, so far, Raw has been half decent. Not amazing. It's been half decent. But
unfortunately, because Logan Paul makes up the main event match, we have to cover him at least a little bit. So
yeah, again, though, someone else had to ask whose music that was.
Well, have you listened to the lyrics of the song that he comes out to?
I haven't. No.
It's all about the fact that he Logan Paul is humble.
Oh shit. Oh, okay. Yeah, we
Logan
know there
Paul
are several
and
things
humble.
Logan Paul isn't, and humble is not one of them.
Logan Paul and humble are not two words that I would put in a sentence together unless they come on either side of is not.
I mean, uh, there's two other words I could fit on the end of that sentence too. Logan Paul is not a professional wrestler. He bought himself, and that is that. Oh,
Yes, we both have our own Logan Paul, like The Miz and Charlotte Flair, is somebody that we agree that for many reasons we dislike him.
apart from you did make me feel like a bit of a prick disliking Miz yesterday morning when you sent me that video of or the article of him buying all the writers dinner because they weren't allowed to the WrestleMania after party. I was like, why'd you have to send me that? I've got to semi-like him a little bit now, and that's a bit harsh.
Yeah, I know. I saw it. I had to share it with somebody else, and you're the only person I could think of. So, tough
It's
shit.
worth it.
But yeah, so Logan Paul comes out. Punk has to ask whose music it is, and to be quite honest, I think everybody else did as well. Punk also admitted to forgetting about the fact that Logan Paul had a match,
I mean,
bearing in mind it's the main event.
we all tried to too.
And basically, there's a bit of back and forth between the two. And Punk basically says, "Look, if you make it into the chamber, I'm gonna put you to sleep."
And that is the one thing I was kind of hoping is going to happen, you know. But then,
Well,
also,
we
like-
may as well introduce the final match of the card, which was the main event match. It was an Elimination Chamber qualifier, which
and it
saw
was
Rey Mysterio face off against the Maverick Logan Paul.
Now, this is the second time these two have met in singles competition. According to the commentary team, I thought there'd been more. Apparently, the last time these two met was in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so Logan Paul, I believe, you may have to correct me, I believe Logan Paul beat Rey Mysterio for the US title.
Possibly. I'm not even going to look it up because by the time you start trying to Google stuff like that, it was at Crown Jewel last year, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, no, I meant. All right, okay, I've got it.
But while he's looking that up, Logan Paul, from the very get-go in this match, very on brand for him, he was disrespectful. I mean, we don't generally tend to tolerate a lot of disrespect for legends on this podcast,
No.
and Rey Mysterio is one that we're both particularly fond of. And yeah,
Rey Mysterio is someone that I think the two of us have been watching since we were just outside of nappies. So to see Logan Paul have that sort of level of disrespect towards a Hall of Famer makes me just want to slap the lips right off his face.
I mean, we didn't have to do that at all because Rey Mysterio gets some really early momentum here and puts Logan Paul very much on the sort of back foot. However, he sort of Logan Paul manages to gain a bit of space after pleading with the ref about the fact that he didn't feel like the ref was counting the match properly, especially when it came to being stuck in a corner with Rey Mysterio wailing on him. I personally could have watched that all night. Screw the ref, screw the rules, just have Rey Mysterio kick the shit out of fucking Logan Paul, tie his arms behind his back so he can't defend himself. I'd fucking love that. But yeah, we see. I mean, I have to give credit where credit is due. As much as we will both say that Logan Paul is not a professional wrestler, he bought his spot. He hasn't paid his dues. He hasn't done the indies. He's going straight in at the big leagues. And as fair enough, if we take the fact that he's Logan Paul out of the equation, some of the matches that I've seen him wrestle have been of a decent quality, I will say, and I may have to throw up after saying that, but
I'm glad
there
you
was
did,
a point.
I almost did.
There was a point where Logan Paul does a. I've characterized it as like a moonsault crossed with a fall away slam. I think he did this off the top rope, and it was. I've got to admit, it was impressive.
I mean, oh, you really put me in a tough spot, you bastard. Logan Paul has a range of moves that you would not necessarily expect from a guy who's bought his space, right? He has got the ability, and we've seen it time and time again, where he does go high and he will take some bumps. One of the ones I really don't want to use this phrase, but one of the ones I enjoy watching him do is the moonsault off the top rope. I think it is. He uses he jumps from the base onto the top rope and then uses the top rope to basically launch himself into a moonsault halfway across whatever area he's going for, to be fair. Because he's hit that from the outside to the inside to the outside, from the outside to the outside. He's hit it everywhere. He when he does get it right, he gets it right. When he doesn't get it right, he just looks like a twat that's not allowed in Japan.
Yeah. But again, we saw some classic Rey Mysterio sort of swinging DDT.
Took us a little
Rey
bit longer to
reverses
see the
a
619 than I thought it would take normally, but it's one of those. I
So
suppose
Ray
Rey's
has
getting a bit
two
older.
attempts at hitting a 619. The first one is sort of foiled by a big boot. The second one he hits, but he's unable to complete the full 619, in my opinion. By it's always been referred to by dropping the dime, and yeah, it's. I mean, Ray even manages to hit a sit-out power bomb for a 2 count. Now, this isn't something we see from Rey Mysterio very often. He's very sort of fast, agile. He doesn't normally go in for the ground and pound sort of style that a sit-out power bomb dictates. So for him to have hit something like that, I found at least noteworthy. But Logan Paul seems to hit what. I'm assuming it's some kind of new move, which is like a.
Pulverizer.
I've characterized it as a flip out face buster, which was lovingly named the Pulverizer, and ends up getting a pinfall win over Rey Mysterio to become the 4th man to go to the Chamber.
Yeah. As much as we will both sit here and go, yeah, it's Logan Paul, that new finisher was actually half decent. I've watched it a few times on social media afterwards from different angles. It doesn't look too bad.
No.
For someone who he's just signed a new contract, isn't he? So he's basically going full time now for the next 12 months, I believe. I again can't really believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually going to cut the guy a bit of slack and give him the benefit of the doubt. When it comes to Elimination Chamber, I don't think he's going to be the first person eliminated, but I don't think he's going to win it. Do I think he deserves a WrestleMania spot this year? Probably not, because we've not seen a huge amount of him. But in the next 12 months, if they can book him and book him well, keep his storylines fresh, we might actually have an opportunity to. We should see him at next year's WrestleMania with a title defense at WrestleMania.
I'm not saying a heavyweight title defense.
No,
probably
I'm saying
end
maybe
up picking
IC, US, or a tag title. Nothing.
No, I don't think we'll see him as part of a tag team, because he'd have to find somebody that he gets on with well enough to be able to team up with. But
someone else is hated
certainly,
just as much as he is. We could team him with the Miz.
Yeah, they're on the wrong promotions.
Yeah,
Miz is on SmackDown and Raw, and Miz is and Paul's on Raw.
just send him back to NXT and let him have it. Oh.
But yeah, so Logan Paul becomes the 4th man to go to the Elimination Chamber. But in the closing seconds of Raw, we see the New Day attack Rey Mysterio in the middle of the ring. Literally closing moments of Raw, and I actually had to go to social media to find fan footage of after that as the attack continued. And I believe I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe somebody did come to Rey Mysterio's defense, and it was Penta.
Ooh, that's a bit tasty.
I know, right?
I see. I didn't see that, so I must have done my my normal. Oh, that's the end of the match. Boom, I'm out. I need the loot, and missed the last 60 seconds of that one. Ooh, but Penta's
So-
Rey Mysterio. We gonna have.
I mean, one thing you will have missed in your time away, though, Rich, is New Day have taken on a. Obviously, it's not news that they've taken on a new persona, but they've definitely taken on a new ring entrance theme video and new ring gear as well, which isn't half bad.
Okay. I mean, I must admit, we've heard that it's a new day. Yes, it is. A lot over the last decade. A lot. It might be a good thing, I suppose.
It's certainly solidifying their heel turn, in my opinion. But yeah, but that brings us to sort of the end of Raw. As I said, we've certainly what's the word I'm looking for? Digressed a lot during this match, but it's
I mean, we've had fun doing it.
certainly digressed a lot during this episode, but it's been good to have you back, mate. Honestly, it's never the same without you. And
Definitely given me a little bit of the last week has been so boring. Sat on my ass on the couch, not being able to even concentrate on my phone. It's been poor. So to be able to feel like I'm back at a point where I can crack back in and crack back on, and it's definitely been a nice one. But
Yeah,
thank you for
so-
having me back.
No, it's all good. It's all good, bro. All good. So next episode that we come out with will be Finishes and Factions does NXT, and this will be the last NXT before Vengeance Day. So that will be we'll be recording that shortly, and it'll be something that you'll be listening to shortly as well. So until then, it's good night from me, and good night from him as well. But look forward to seeing you guys when we do Finishes and Factions does NXT.
Yeah, see you in NXT. Have a good one.